Morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to another live stream with Healthy Minds Innovations. My name is Jay. We skipped a week last week, so it's nice to be back. And this week's theme is kindness. So just as we get started, it'd be nice to say hi in the chat. So please say hi in the chat if you're here and you have access to that. It's great to see who's in the room. To feel a little bit of connection, especially while many of us are separated in this pandemic still. In case you don't know, these streams are put on by Healthy Minds Innovations, which is a nonprofit aimed at translating the science of well-being into practical tools. And this week our theme is kindness, and it's quite an intentional theme given what's going on in the world right now, especially in the US. So we're going to do a bit of a practice to explore kindness. And that might seem flowery. I know it certainly did to me the first time I did any kind of loving kindness, compassion practices within the pillar of connection using the Healthy Minds model of well-being. But kindness is quite a simple act, like what you've all just done to say hello in the chat. Hi, MJ. Hi, DP. Hi, Liz. Hi, Robert. There's a sense of kindness right there. There's a sense of welcoming, of wanting to make a connection with someone else. And really importantly, it's not just some sort of vague idea of goodness or some vague idea of to be nice, but the way we're going to think about kindness is this idea. Oh, hi, Katie. I see your name in there too. Hi, Katie. The way we're going to think about kindness is this desire or wish that we have for others to experience well-being or to be happy. So we sort of have this natural, innate wish for others to experience positive emotions. It seems to be wired into us. Hi, Maureen. Welcome. Hi, Fanar. Oh, I can't say it. Fanar Vaezo from Chile. Welcome, welcome. So there is this sense of kindness that actually starts at a very, very young age. Some scientists even suggest that it is innate. They've run studies showing that babies less than a year old show what they call pro-social behavior, that they naturally want to help others. And I actually witnessed it this morning. My nephew was having a bit of a tantrum, having some very difficult emotions, and he's almost 3 years old. And my son, who's almost a year and a half, we were downstairs, and he heard his cousin crying upstairs, and he stopped what he was doing, and he looked over at the stairs, and he started walking over and climbing the stairs. And, I don't know for sure, it's hard to have access to a 1-year-old's mind, but it was very clear to me that he was concerned. He was concerned that his cousin was crying. He wanted to go see what was up, and maybe some part of him wanted to help. So there is this kind of natural force within all of us to be kind, and that manifests in different ways, sometimes in problematic ways, sometimes in beautiful ways. And that's what we're going to explore in the practice today. We're going to take, let's do a 15-minute practice today. So we're going to go for 15 minutes, and we're going to explore using our imagination to foster an experience of kindness in this moment, and then see how that feels in the body, potentially even redirect that to those who might need a bit of kindness. So let's get started. Find yourself a comfortable position, whatever feels natural to you. For me, it helps sometimes to take a deep breath, and on the inhale, straightening up, and on the exhale, letting go of the jaw, the shoulders, sinking into gravity. Really trying to find a position where we're using as little effort as possible to stay upright and in a state of balance. If you typically find it helpful, or if you're new at this, you may want to close your eyes. Some people prefer to have their eyes open, in which case I recommend you choose a place to fixate your gaze, and you soften your eyes, you relax your eyes, and you just rest your gaze there. Before we get into any of the kindness practice, let's just take a minute or two to ground ourselves in whatever we might be experiencing in this moment. No need to change anything. Just letting it all be as it is. If you find yourself instinctively paying attention to the breath or the body out of habit, that's perfectly fine. If you're just sitting and letting your mind wander, that's fine too. Just slowing down and letting the dust settle. Enjoying the transition. In some ways, taking this moment to offer yourself a bit of kindness. Just to let yourself be as you are. And you can hang out here for a bit longer, but whenever you're ready, let's start the kindness practice by bringing to mind someone who really perfectly embodies kindness from your perspective. Someone who truly seems to have a wish for others to be happy, for others to experience well-being, to have positive emotions. And it's an interesting prompt I just gave you. So notice who comes to mind naturally. Could be a public figure, someone who's known for their benevolence, or it could be a family member, someone who has shown you or others kindness quite consistently. Could even be an ancestor, which might take a little bit more imagination, but that's okay. Someone you imagine or know of that you've descended from that has shown kindness in making all of this possible. You may also notice a kind fictional character coming to mind, and that's totally fair game. It could be someone from a book, or even a comic book, or a TV show or movie. Really, it's boundless here. We're just trying to find a persona that embodies kindness, that truly seems benevolent in their wish for others to be happy, in their service in support of others. Take a few moments to see if you can find someone and choose a good example. Choose someone that comes to mind that feels really natural and effortless for you, feels uncomplicated, just feels like a true representative of kindness in your mind. And if you don't have anyone yet, you can keep searching. Again, anyone is fair game, and you don't have to have the perfect choice. Whoever's come to mind should be good enough to work with. And once you've got someone, I want you to really inhabit that persona for the next few minutes. To really, you might visualize them, you might remember things they've said or phrases that they tend to repeat. You might visualize their face sitting in front of you. You might visualize yourself being that person and seeing the world from their perspective. Or maybe you have a mental image of them in an act of kindness, something you witnessed, something you've seen, where they've done something quite kind, quite benevolent. So what we're doing here is we're just using our imagination to really conjure up a true example, an exemplar even, an exemplar of kindness, and noticing how that feels. So take a few moments to really be with that individual. Again, could be a public figure, could be a family member, could be a fictional character, or an ancestor. It's all good. If this feels somehow contrived or awkward, that's perfectly natural. We're just experimenting here, and this isn't any kind of magical thinking. We're just seeing what happens when we bring someone who's truly kind to mind, seeing how that feels, kind of running the circuits of our brain with a strong dose of kindness in this moment and seeing how that feels. And if you find yourself a little bit scattered, hard to stay focused, try to explore a different modality. So if you're visualizing, maybe try repeating the name of this person in your inner voice, or thinking about a phrase. Or if that's what you've been doing, maybe try a visualization, imagining their face or imagining them in an act. Really trying to explore the modality that allows you to really access this sense of kindness in the moment. If you find your mind drifting off, or if you find this challenging, there's no need to get self-critical. Just notice what happened and come back to the exercise. Again, we are visualizing or imagining a paragon of kindness, an exemplar of kindness, someone who you find truly benevolent. Letting ourselves wash over with the persona of that individual. And as you do this, you might notice what sensations are arising in your body as a result. So continue with this kindness practice and notice if it has an impact on the way you're carrying yourself, or on the way it feels to breathe, or maybe on your facial muscles or your shoulders, or anything else you might notice in the body. And if you don't notice anything, that's fine. But just paying attention to how it feels. You also might notice this exercise triggering specific memories or specific thoughts. And how interesting that is, that we immerse ourselves in the kindness of another human being. And as a result, changes potentially arise in the way we carry ourselves, the way our body feels, in the thoughts that come to mind, in the emotions that we feel. Just noticing what arises without any judgment. And if nothing's arising, just stay with it. Immerse yourself in the kindness of this example, of this individual, and see what happens. And for this last minute or two, let's take the momentum that you've built up in this kindness practice, and let's imagine someone out there who might need your kindness right now. There's a lot going on in the world, facing a pandemic, there are widespread protests. It can be hard to bring topics like this up in the middle of a meditation, but I would argue it's important to do so. So let's take that momentum, that kindness, and see if you can imagine, or maybe you actually know someone out there who really needs your kindness right now. And see if you can just bring them to mind and take some of the momentum you've built from this practice and offer it to your mental image of that individual. Whether or not you imagine this kindness is actually going to reach them or not is irrelevant. Really, what we're doing is using this individual as a focus for our own kindness, to activate and recognize that we too have the same kindness potential as this example that we've been meditating on, this benevolent individual, that everything that they have is within us as well. They are human beings just like us. We'll take the end of this practice just to express that in our minds and bask in it and notice how it feels. Okay, nice work. You can drop the practice now. Take your time in transition. Absolutely no rush whatsoever. Carry this feeling forward. And I'll speak a little bit about the practice we just did, but before that, I'm going to invite you to share in the chat any thoughts, reflections, or questions you might have about the practice we just did or kindness in general in the chat. And while you do that, just to speak a little bit about the framing that I took around this kindness practice, especially for those that might have tried something like this before, and even for those who haven't, that really what the neuroscience is showing us, I've studied a fair bit and read a fair bit of neuroscience, and I've done a lot of mindfulness and compassion practices. And the first thing I know for sure is that we don't know a lot. There's a lot of mystery. There's a lot of, attempts to understand and clarify things, but there's also still a lot that we need to learn. But at the same time, there is something that we're starting to see quite clearly, I've witnessed experientially in my practice as well as in the neuroscience, is this idea that the things that we pay attention to largely become who we are. So if you spend a lot of time reading from a certain author, or you spend a lot of time with a certain person, a friend or a family member, that we start to, in some ways, become them. We start to notice thoughts that we have that are sort of feel like they're in their voice, or we start to say things, those catchphrases. Like, I definitely notice myself saying things to my son that are verbatim quotes that my parents said to me. So in a lot of ways, the way we pay attention shapes who we are. And so in the kind of awareness category of well-being, when we're paying attention to things, we're learning how to pay attention to what we deem relevant. In some ways, we're learning to architect our own minds, because over years and decades, paying attention to something, we start to absorb it, and it starts to shape who we become. So my framing for practices like kindness and compassion and appreciation, these practices that we fall under the connection pillar of well-being, to me, at the basic logic of what we're doing is we're paying attention to some of these innate positive forces, this innate desire for others to feel happy, this innate desire for others to be free and at ease of any kind of challenges they might be facing, to appreciate the details. And that in itself can transform our own minds. So there's a lot of philosophies, a lot of angles that go a step further and imagine, potentially a spiritual or energetic dimension where you might actually send kindness to someone and manifest your intentions out in the world. And I don't know where I land on that. I think there's a lot of argument for it. There's a lot of argument against it. And frankly, I don't find it that relevant to the logic behind this practice, because fundamentally, the more time you spend paying attention to your own innate sense of kindness and those who inspire you to be kind, the more you start to pay attention and become kind. The more you start to become compassionate, the more you start to instinctively appreciate the little things in life. So I hope that's a useful framing. It's definitely something that helped unlock this particular pillar of well-being for me, when a lot of stuff I perceived as a bit abstract. The basic logic of the practice is that by paying attention to love, quite frankly, we can become love ourselves. And it truly is mirrored in my own personal experience and the neuroscience. So thank you for sharing in the chat. We have a quote from Robert. I learned silence from the talkative and tolerance from the intolerant and kindness from the unkind. From Khalil Gibran. Thank you, Robert. A beautiful share. Hi, David. I'm noticing I'm feeling a lot of compassion and strong emotions like anger during these kindness facilitations. Oh, it's a wonderful share, David. So anger can actually be a manifestation of kindness. Bear with me, it may seem counterintuitive, but let's take the act of a protest, for example. Wherever you might land on the spectrum of the political polarization here, I certainly know where I stand on it, and am greatly in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. The idea that someone can act in anger out of their desire for others to feel well-being is not that counterintuitive. When you stand up for someone, you can express anger in a healthy way, and there's also unhealthy ways to express anger, let's not forget. But it is possible to express anger in a healthy way to stand up for the well-being of another individual. So anger can be kind, and that's something we definitely can sit with. Robert, your tribe is your vibe, and vice versa. Love it. MJ feels at peace and free. My pleasure, MJ. So thanks for joining. As always, you can subscribe below if you want to get notifications. There's some links in the chat to learn more about Healthy Minds Innovations and to donate. And that provides support for live streaming meditations like this, as well as the Healthy Minds Program app and other exciting developments we have there. Next up, we have Monday at 5 p.m. Central, 6 Eastern. Daniela, the wonderful Daniela, is going to be leading a practice in Spanish. So if you're a Spanish speaker, please join us then. If you're not a Spanish speaker, on Tuesday at noon Central, 1 Eastern, the lovely Stephanie Wagner is going to be leading a practice. And at this time next week, the founder of Healthy Minds Innovations, Richie Davidson, is going to be leading a practice. And then I'll be back at this time slot the week after. So we're alternating with Richie and Peter. So this time slot, every week there will be a practice, but I will be every other week. So thanks again. Hope you're all doing wonderful. Hope you're managing to stay balanced in a lot of the chaos that we're facing. And I hope you find some time in your day to notice the kindness underlying some of the things we see in the healthcare system, on the front lines of these protests, and even in, believe it, even in the political sphere, there are people who are acting kind. So best of luck. Do not ever hesitate to reach out to me personally if you have any questions, and take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.